excited to have y'all. I met some of you, if it's your first time and you're new, I want to make sure to meet after as well if I haven't yet. Thank y'all for all coming out. I'm super excited. This guy who's speaking tonight, not only most of y'all have already seen him talk, whether it was Raleigh Durham Startup Week or some other talk or talking on LinkedIn, this guy does a lot of talking. And I know, this guy was the dude who got me to post my first ever piece of LinkedIn content. He convinced me years ago that building in public was cool, and I'm very grateful for that. Alec, very excited to have you tonight. Can we give him a huge round of applause?
So how's everyone doing? This AI thing is kind of interesting. Yeah? Broad spectrum of folks that kind of talk about it. As we get our IT situation sorted, Pepe in the house, a lot of founders. So I'll just kind of speak to my journey a little bit before we get into the slideware. And for those of you that, this is helpful to hear, I was the least technical dude you've ever met about 10, 11 years ago. And there was this thing that happened where I saw something called robotic process automation. I remember exactly where I was sitting in New York in a conference room, and it just hit me like a lightning bolt, because I'm a management consultant, and so I understand taking things apart, strengthening them, putting them back together again. And so I think one of the things that I love about these conversations and these talks is that there is absolutely unequivocally no such thing as a bad question, number one. Number two, I really hope that you guys will collectively allow us all to ask questions and answer those questions and move and groove and kind of flow through it so everyone leaves this conversation feeling like, I learned something, I enjoyed it, it was good. For those of you that are super technical, I love those questions. Those questions can be quite difficult for others to understand, so let's try to kind of balance those out. And I see some engineers in the room already nodding their head, so you know where this is going. So look, I'm attending. That's a good little setup for this, right? All right, so how many of you all in this room are either founders or contemplating founding a company, or you have some side hustle that more or less is like a business? Oh wow, okay. We've got business owners, we've got founders. You don't have to raise your hand on this one per se, but it helps me calibrate if I understand a little bit more if it's like institutional VC-backed startups versus bootstrap startups and stuff in between. So keep that in mind when I flow through that. Those are different flavors of animals, as you all know. So here we go. If and when you don't ask me questions, I will start pointing. And I know a bunch of people in this room, so be ready, Brian Basis. I see you over there. And Colin, you too. I know you got good questions. So here we go. I format these talks in a way where I try to just rapid fire go through stuff that eventually triggers for folks and they start asking questions, or you have body language and I'm like, hey, what do you find interesting about this? But I like to tee it up by saying, here are the things that we're going to talk about. And if and when any of this is especially interesting, do not hesitate to ask the question or jump in, but this is kind of where we're going to go. So number one, AI has made handoffs disappear. That is kind of more or less where the AI first stuff lives, which is really exciting and also somewhat terrifying for those that understood T-shape versus E-shape versus this, that, and the other thing. Technical deployment and overhang, this is all real. People say this in different ways, but we'll get into that. The number three is probably my favorite one. It should have been number one, which is there are two types of people in AI. There are those with their hands in the dirt building stuff, and then there's everybody else. And that's not a criticism of those that haven't yet had a chance to do it, but it is 110%. If there's one thing I hope every single one of you walk away with when you leave here, is you're inspired to start building. Just build something. It doesn't matter what it is. It's got to be something. And number four, you can buy a model, but you can't buy a learning loop. That's going to be something we're going to get into in a second. Uber CPO 16.5, 68, any company of any size can do this. When will they? Who in this room has actually, besides Evan, saw the CTO of Uber put a Twitter thread out on July 7th that spoke to some outrageously tangible results in 60 days? You got it. Boom. Okay. Engineering. Yeah? Done. Number 6, codify your workflows, introduce AI leverage, push. And number 7, Go-to-market. I know a lot of folks want to talk about that. You move that around and we can pull it up. But have folks ever heard of this, like the Dunbar number, that you can only manage 150 some odd relationships, give or take socially or what have you? AI says 1,000 plus. That's very real, and that ties directly to revenue generation, et cetera. So, does that work for everybody in terms of like a bunch of different topics? Okay, I'm going to try to New York it in motor mouth. Here we go. I've been infinitely curious about AI since 2016. I was the least technical dude, but the one thing I'm going to try to sell you on besides the build is start writing if you can. You don't have to do it in public, but the more you write, the more clearly you will think. And there's so much about this AI stuff that feels very overwhelming and complex. But if you just write or you follow those that write really well, shout out Aaron Levy. If you don't follow him on Twitter, the Box founder and CEO, one of the best. Stretches across engineering, product, business, etc. But yeah, go for the build in public. Mark Cuban, November 22nd, 2017, he essentially said that there's going to be this AI machine that's going to spit out all this intelligence and all these answers, and therefore thinking critically and creatively is going to be way more important than people realize. He was right. This is where you can find me. This is where you can find the micro essays, podcasts, newsletters, etc. I really hope that anybody in this room who hasn't yet will subscribe and let me know if you like what you see. I'm going to jump into what I know, what I think, and what I don't know. Really important to always remember what you don't know when it comes to this stuff. I joined this firm. I was very, very fortunate. Razorfish. There might be some folks in this room that might know about Razorfish. I know Ryan knows about Razorfish. This statement was said, I think, on a 60-minute interview that confused everybody at that time. This is when the internet bubble was kind of, doing its thing. And they said that everything that can be digital will be. That was Razorfish in 1995. And some people ask me often about like, hey, I think this might be the one, and this quote, yeah. When people ask me about AI, this is the thing I think about. AI means that computers learn our language so that we no longer have to learn theirs. The constraint is gone. You don't have to necessarily be somebody who knows how to engineer this stuff anymore. You can now be a builder, and you don't actually have to learn how to code, per se. Everything that can be augmented by AI will be. That, more or less, is something I believe in wholeheartedly. There's more to that, but a lot of people tend to talk about the automation side of things. I never talk about that. There's two reasons why. One is you can only automate so much, right? But what you really ought to be thinking about is how do you pair humans and machines to augment humans to give us superpowers? So like Dunbar's number, 150, take that to 1,000, right? That is a superpower. And if folks, ever want to talk about the other side of it, which is, AI automating jobs, I'll get into it in a little bit. It actually doesn't do that. It automates tasks, which are really good for the most part. So here we go. AI has made handoffs disappear. AI first. Has anybody heard of this concept of a T-shaped individual? Yeah? No? Somebody describe T-shaped. You want to do it?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so T-shaped individual is where you have responsibilities that can be more singular as they come down the arc.
That's right.
And makes the execution in a more controlled and focused manner.
That's right. That's right. And so a T-shaped individual is, please, go ahead. T-shaped, microphone.
Sorry. I think T-shaped individual is anyone where you are able to execute primarily the smallest unit of work that you can perform, thereby breaking down your work.
Microphone etiquette is about 1 to 2 inches from your mouth. Hold it slightly.
I need a scale.
Alright,
so T-shaped individual is anyone where you are able to break down the multiple level of breaking down the complexity of the work to a modular, smallest possible component that can be more focused and executed in relatively less effort.
That's absolutely right. Thanks for microphone editing, because I wasn't doing that well. So thanks. And to build on that too, it's the cross-functional nature, right? So you know a little bit, enough to be dangerous across the function, right? But you're very deep in a certain and specific area. And now there's a theory, and I definitely am a large buyer of it, which is, quote unquote, forget T-shaped and think about E-shaped individuals. So AI in general can be looked at as something that can give you answers and you're done with it. Or it can be looked at as something that can accelerate your learning in a way that was previously unimaginable. So someone who is T-shaped can become E-shaped quite quickly. That creates some confusion, but it also is a very, very, very exciting concept, especially for those of you that have startups and your founders and so on and so forth. because this is where things really get exciting for the ability of a founder to scale themselves and their businesses in a major way, right? So think of it this way. So if the T-shaped person is a specialist who develops cross-functional capabilities, even one thing, competent across neighbors, the E-shaped is the operator who stops waiting for handoffs. D is 2 or 3 things, competent across the rest, AI handling the gaps in real time. That's a very important piece, right? So when AI is stepping into the gaps, think of that as the handoffs or the meetings or the blockers that have to take place in order for some sort of a process to go end to end. AI is helping us not have to do that and not have to wait anymore. And I think that's where things can really